Chief Nousen was to be here today, but instead, and luckily for us, we are pleased to welcome Benjamin Franklin back to Open Circle this morning. The last time Dr. Franklin spoke here, we were transported back to June 1775. He had just broken off relations with his son William, the royal governor of New Jersey. Benjamin announced himself to be a revolutionary, breaking allegiance to King George and the British government, while William remained loyal to the crown. Such were the times in the last quarter of the 18th century. Families and long friendships were broken over whether the British colonies in North America would be free or stay under British rule. Sounds familiar. Fast forward, the date is now October 26th, 1776, and you all, it's just, breeze blowing through the treetops. That would be a really big bird. Okay. You all of us, we are the citizens of Philadelphia who have gathered dockside because we have heard rumors that Dr. Franklin may be leaving the newly formed United States of America on the ship. Much has happened in the 16 months since Dr. Franklin has spoken publicly. Perhaps he will share his thoughts with us today. I can see the ship behind us. If the rumors of his departure are true, Dr. Franklin and his two grandsons should be arriving any minute. Sure enough, here comes Dr. Franklin now.
Come along, boys. Come along, boys. Captain Wicks is waiting for us, and the tide waits for no man. I taught you that, I think. Oh, what do we have here? My departure was supposed to be a secret. Poor Richard taught that 3 can keep a secret.
Make sure you have your wallet.
Poor Richard taught that 3 can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. I don't know how you ended up here, but there seems there can be no secrets in this city right now. My grandsons and I are ready to depart on a mission of great importance. I cannot tell you where we are going. I hope that you don't know. But the way this city keeps secrets, you probably do know. I have to say that I feel obligated to say a few words to you this morning before my departure. I came to this city 53 years ago as a teenage, penniless runaway. I had nothing but a pocket full of dreams and a skill as a printer. I was able to turn that skill and those dreams into something that is enduring in this city. I apologize for not having prepared a speech for you today. I'm subject to much hesitation in the choice of my words, and Mr. Jefferson will tell you he's never known me to speak more than 10 minutes at a time. But I'm remiss in not introducing my grandson to you. Most of you, I think, know, or certainly you've seen young Benjamin Franklin Bache. He's 7 now. He's my daughter Sally and her husband Richard Bache's son. If I should die on this trip, it'll be good to have a child to put pennies on my eyes. My other grandson is Temple Franklin. He's William's boy. Temple was born in Europe and given over to foster care when, it seems, that William returned to New Jersey to be the royal governor. I rescued Temple from that foster care when he was 4 years old, and I raised him in my household in London. Now that is something that I take great pride in, because I was able to give him schooling. So much schooling that he is going to be my secretary in this mission. I am very proud of these young men. I'm going to speak to you today because I may not have another chance. I am 70 years old, and there are no guarantees in life. So I will do my best to sum up what has happened in the revolution to this point. I will tell you that it goes all the way back to my time in England, when I was sent over on 2 separate missions. In the last 19 years, I have spent 15 of those years in England, trying to negotiate peaceful relations between our colonies and the British people and their government. I'm afraid I have failed in that, because we find ourselves engaged in a great civil war. I am at war with my son. I am at war with my very good friend and protege, Joseph Galloway. It pains me a great deal. I have lost so many friends who have remained loyal to this crown, this corrupt government. I don't know what I'm going to be able to do because of all of this. I will say that I've done my best. And it's only been 16 or 18 months since I arrived back here in my chosen home. And now the Congress has seen fit to send me away again. I will do my best for my new country. You'll recall when I spoke to you last, we had just come out of the battles of Lexington, Concord, and Bunker Hill. Those were bloody battles. The British lost 200 men, many of them officers. The United States, now our Patriot soldiers, lost 150 men. The cost in terms of money to the British was £3 million. For that investment, they gained a half-mile of territory. A half-mile for £3 million. They killed 150 of us. That works out to be 20,000 pounds a person. I don't know how long they can afford to fight this war. It may be over quickly, and if it is, we'll be subjected to horrible things, because we have revolted against the most powerful army, navy, and government in the world. General Washington held down our encampment in Cambridge, across the Back Bay from Boston. They have been occupying Boston for several years. General Washington couldn't muster the forces to attack them, but he came up with an ingenious plan. He sent young Colonel Henry Knox to go to the forts of Ticonderoga and Crown Point, north of Lake George, in the dead of winter. And Henry Knox brought back cannons down Lake George, down the Hudson, across the Berkshire in horrible winter conditions. When the British awoke on the morning of March 17 last, they found General Washington ensconced on the Dorchester Heights with those very cannon. And the British knew at that point in time they had to skedaddle. And they took their army and their navy and they retreated to Halifax, awaiting reinforcements of British regulars and German mercenaries. At about the same time, Congress asked me to go on a mission to Canada to try to convince the Catholic French Canadians to come and fight with us and to be our allies. That mission failed miserably. I nearly died. At one point I sat down and wrote farewell letters to a few of my friends and family. I did survive, obviously, but I came home covered in boils and with the gout giving me pain every day. The only good thing to come out of this trip is this warm marten hat, which serves a dual purpose. It obviously keeps my head warm on this crossing of the ocean in the dead of winter, but is also hiding the unsightly boils that still inflict most of my body. I was able to do very little when I returned. I was confined to my house. I couldn't attend many of the meetings of the Congress in May and early June. But during that early June, I was appointed to a committee to write a declaration of our independence from Great Britain. We chose Thomas Jefferson to write the first draft. And then he was kind enough to give me and Mr. John Adams attempts at editing the draft, which we did. We then presented that document to the Congress, and after 2 or 3 days of debate, we all agreed that this was to be our Declaration of Independence. And if you'll allow me, I've taken a copy of the Declaration. I'm taking this with me to share with intellectuals in Europe. In Congress, July 4, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impelled them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Time will not allow me to read more of this document to you. But know we closed with this. And for the support of this declaration, we affirm our reliance on the protection of divine providence. We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Over the next couple of months, 56 men from all 13 new United States signed this document. The first to do so, and the only one to do so on July 4th, was John Hancock, our president. Mr. Hancock signed it, and then he looked up and said, "Men, we must all hang together." I couldn't help myself. I said, "Yes, men, we must all hang together, or most assuredly, we will all hang separately." It is one thing to declare independence. It is a totally different thing to win it. And to win our independence, we must fight for it. But to fight for that independence is going to take materials that we don't have here. We don't have the manufacture to match the strongest army and navy in the world. Unless we find some place to give us, to sell us, to provide for us arms, equipment, and men, General Washington will be fighting the redcoats with bows and arrows and spears. I am leaving these lands knowing that I may not return. But I am also leaving these lands knowing that I have done everything in my power to keep us out of this war. Recently, the British commander, Admiral Howe, and I exchanged correspondence. Lord Howe and I were friends in London. We attempted to meet some kind of agreement that would keep us from separation, to keep us from fighting in Lexington and Concord and so forth. But we failed. John Adams, Edmund Rutledge, and I traveled to Staten Island, and on September the 11th, we met with Lord Howe. He presented a fine luncheon. We talked for 3 hours. Neither side budged. They would not recognize our independence, and they would not allow us to go on as we have. And we said we're going to have to continue to fight for our independence. So that brings us to this day. Don't know if I will see you again. This has a promise of being a long war that's going to divide us. But let's hope that we can all meet back here another day. Boys, I know that Captain Wicks is eager to get underway. The tide and the wind is right. Why don't you go ahead and get on board? I'll see if I can answer one or two questions.
Dr. Franklin.
Captain Wicks! Captain Wicks, I'll be right there, Captain Wicks. Okay, one question. Anybody have one question? I'm going to have to leave. Oh, one question. Thank you, ma'am.
Actually, it's not a question, it's just a compliment. You're fabulous. How you did this without a script. Very informative. Thank you so much. You're amazing. I know you don't want to be out of character, but thank you.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, dude. I'm from New Jersey.
Again, I can't tell you where I'm going, but I bid you adieu. Benjamin Franklin was a genius with electrical items. I am not so much. But I do have the latest in books. This pocket computer of mine has helped me research all of these things. And it's helped me write something. I have to remind you that we are in the 21st century, and 4 years from tomorrow, the United States will be celebrating its, get this word, semi-quincentennial. It'll be the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Looking around, I'd say many of you remember the bicentennial. That's 50 years ago, or 46 years from this date. It's been 250 years. The English language has changed in that time. The English language is always evolving. If you look back 250 years from Mr. Jefferson and Mr. Franklin's time, you come to 1526. Let me put that 250 years back in time in context for you. Henry VIII was still married to his first wife. Elizabeth, the Virgin Queen, had not yet been born. William Shakespeare's father hadn't been born. That's how long 250 years separated the founders from their time. We are that far separated from the founders. Now, the Declaration has inspired many, many people over the years. People as diverse as the French revolutionaries, which rose up against King Louis, who came to the aid of the United States. Franklin was on his way to France. If you remember nothing else from today, remember this. We would not have won our independence had it not been for the aid of France. They are our oldest and most loyal ally. Please remember that. It's been somewhat easy to pick on the French lately. But they are there, and they have supported us, and we are free because of them. So, the French revolutionaries were inspired by the Declaration of Independence. The women and men who attended the Seneca Falls Conference on Women's Rights in 1848 were inspired by the Declaration. They wrote, all men and women are created equal. Closer to home, Ho Chi Minh used the Declaration of Independence as the battle cry and the founding document to inspire his nation to rise up against the French Empire, kick them out, and then defeated the United States of America and founded an independent Vietnam. And the mob of deplorables who stormed the United States Capitol 18 months ago also used the Declaration of Independence as their justification in the spirit of '76. I have to tell you that things are not what they seem always. The Declaration of Independence was and is a radical document. Let me use my computer here. If you go on the internet, you will find a lot of people who have tried to update the Declaration into 21st century language. Many of those sound similar. I have written something that is not that original, but I hope to have translated the Declaration into language we can all understand today. And if you'll allow me 5 minutes, I'd be happy to read you my interpretation. In Congress, July 4, 1776, the unanimous Declaration of the United States of America. Governments are not perfect, and from time to time, people decide it is in their best interest to form a new government. People have every right to be free, but to be fair, the people have an obligation to publicly announce to the world why they are declaring independence. It is an obvious truth that all people are created equal, and all people have the rights of life, liberty, and property. These rights can neither be taken away nor given away. And they are the only legitimate purpose of government. It is to make sure that these three rights are protected. If any government fails to protect these rights, the people have a right to rebel and establish a new government that will ensure the rights of life, liberty, and property. Government should not be changed because of minor failings, and we know human nature is such that the people will suffer under these small mistakes rather than take drastic action. However, if a government violates continually the fundamental rights, it is the right, it is the duty of the people to take back their government. The current government of Great Britain has repeatedly trampled on the rights of the people of British America. The King of Great Britain has shown himself to be a dictator. Here are a few facts
of how the king has violated our rights. He has refused to pass laws of great importance to us. He has forced our legislative bodies to meet in places that are uncomfortable and distant from our historical record. He has refused to allow us to make immigrants citizens of our states. He has forced judges to be loyal only to him. He has created a huge bureaucracy that harasses our people. He has kept armies among us even in times of peace. He has made his military superior to our laws. He has imposed taxes on us without our consent. He has deprived us of trial by jury. He has taken away our founding documents and our most valuable laws. He has employed foreign armies to fight against us and to burn our towns and cities. We have repeatedly asked the King of Great Britain to stop these actions, but he has ignored our humble requests. Any king who treats his people this way is not fit to be the ruler of free people. We have told our friends in Britain about the actions of the king's government and the impact these actions have on us. We have repeatedly reminded our British friends of our common bonds, but they too have been deaf to our calls for justice. Thus, we say to our British friends, as we say to the rest of mankind, we are enemies in times of war and friends only in times of peace. Therefore, acting as the officially appointed representatives of the people of the United States of America, we declare our independence from Great Britain. All ties with our foreign rulers are now cut, and we are a free and independent nation. As an independent nation, we have full power to levy war, make peace, form alliances, engage in trade, and do all the things independent nations have the right to do. In support of this declaration, we pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Of the 56 men who signed the declaration, 9 of them did not live to see the Treaty of Paris that ended the war, signed in 1783. Many of the signers who outlived Franklin, who died in 1790 at the age of 84 in Philadelphia. Many of these young men who signed this lived well into the 19th century. In fact, 2 of the authors of the Declaration, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, died within hours of each other on July 4, 1826, the 50th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration. It is an amazing document. It shows you, I think, that these founding fathers were in fact rebels. These were not guys who just sat around and did nothing. They were overthrowing the strongest nation in the world. Get off our backs. And that's why we're free today. We ran them out. And these ideas have inspired many others to try to do the same thing. Now, I must report to you one thing that really has troubled me in the last 48 hours. The University of Chicago's Institute of Politics has just finished a poll of 1,000 Americans. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, liberals, conservatives, middle of the roaders, if there are any left. They found that 28%, or 280 people in this survey, said, I think armed rebellion against the government at a time in the near future is something that is very possible. Now, you may try to stereotype the people who would say this. Know this. 35% of all Republicans said that. 45% of all people who identified as strong Republicans said that. Probably no surprise there. But 20% of all Democrats said that taking up arms against the government was something that could happen soon. Last night in my hometown of Portland, a group of people who were very upset by the Supreme Court judgment on Roe v. Wade did a riot, an insurrection, if you will. Their target was the Catholic Church. They settled for knocking the windows out of a vacant building. We are at a crossroads in the United States. We are a deeply divided nation. I don't know how we get out of that. Let me just say one more thing. 56% of the people who answered this survey said, I think the government is corrupt and does not represent the interests of people like me. So if you look back at the Declaration, we're not talking about light and transient causes here. We're talking about deep divide. And it doesn't bode well. If we look at the Declaration, and it says it is the right of the people, it is the duty of the people to throw off such government and to institute new government which would better represent their interests. With that, I will be quiet, and I will be happy to answer your questions about Franklin, the Declaration, or the price of gas in the United States. Yes, ma'am.
Would you comment on the current situation in the Ukraine, please, and how it relates to the United States?
Could I comment on the current situation in Ukraine and how it relates to the United States? Other than, I suppose I could draw a parallel here between Ukraine asking Big Brother for some help in fighting their war. We're playing the role of France in all of this. We are arming the Ukrainians to stave off the Russian invasion. Right? Okay. Yes.
The poll that you just mentioned,
Yes.
I'm assuming from your example that 28% of Democrats said armed rebellion was possible. Were they talking about armed rebellion from the left or armed rebellion from the right, or either, or both?
The question is the 28% that I quoted from the study that said we could have rebellion against the government soon. 20% were Democrat, 35% were Republican and independents.
But there was no specificity about where that rebellion was.
There is no specificity. Again, in my hometown of Portland, Oregon, we have had riots in the streets 2 and 3 years ago with real left-wing anarchist radicals, Antifa, who were the smokescreen for what happened on January 6th, blaming it on Antifa rather than the Oath Keepers or the Proud Boys or whatever. But yes, and gun owners were at 37%. You thought that could happen.